Negotiating for the faith. Today I want to talk to you about in light of fulfilling the Great Commission according to Matthew 28. Today I want to help you better negotiate to win more souls for Jesus Christ. Greetings, everybody. My name is Stevie Garofalo. This is Reason for Truth, where the truth comes first and the reasons come last. But we know we're always and constantly learning, because when we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. Reason for Truth is the channel and the organization that helps you, both Christians and non-Christians, cut through the fog of culture's distorted truth. Because in our relative world, the truth doesn't change, but the human will to distort it certainly does. We cut through the distortion of current events with the truth as an antidote to the false messages so pervasive in our world today. But before we get started, boom, you know what I'm Sicilian on both sides, mom and dad. Dad was born there, so I can only tell you, take the Garcia to Sinistra. Bam! That little subscribe button there. Knock it out. Don't wait any longer. Then click that little alert bell. You won't miss any of these incredible episodes. All right, the Apostle Paul said this, though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everybody. Boy, that's a packed word. To win as many as possible. To the Jews, I become like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I become like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those who, having the law, I become like one not having the law. Though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law. So as to win those not having the law. To the weak, I become weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I may save some. I do this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 to 23. So what's going on here? What's Apostle Paul saying? Is he telling us to lie or misrepresent ourselves or skew the truth? The answer is no. What Paul's saying is that we are to identify in as much as possible with other people, right? Within reason. What Paul's saying is that evangelism is simply sharing our faith, and sharing our faith entails some level of persuasion, and persuasion often leads to the game of negotiation. It's not that we compromise the gospel, but that we negotiate in our approach to present the gospel. With that as our premise, let's take a little deeper dive into how to negotiate and win. All right. The Holy Spirit, by the way, changes the heart. We don't. But we can get better in how we exercise our giftedness or just obedience towards evangelism, all right? Or sharing our faith is a better way to put it. As Paul says, to win some to the faith. As a start point, the science of negotiating or negotiation is more often a matter of survival than quite often. You be in positions where you're like, oh, Lord, I can't. This is way above my pay scale. You start praying, Lord, give me the words. When we are backed into a corner, we often find ourselves negotiating to preserve ourselves, our position. If, let's say we're actually in the marketplace. We're not just evangelizing. It could be for our position, our job, and in some cases our life. That could be related to your faith as well, but it's often out of this desperation of trying to share faith with people who don't believe in Jesus Christ, that are really very much different than ourselves, that leads us to a place whereby we are forced to be stretched by God, to depend on Him for the words and to help us become more creative in how we share our faith. How many times have maybe you found yourself sharing your faith with a Muslim or a Hindu or someone who's gay, and all of a sudden, it's not as easy as it was 30 years, 40, 50 years ago. It's often out of a desperation to find more creative ways to bring a sense of mutual respect in order to be able to be more effective to present the gospel, that God makes us even better at fulfilling and more skilled and more knowledgeable, more able to fulfill the Great Commission. All of us should be sharpening our negotiating skills and depending on those, and our persuasion skills, and really depending on those skills that we have. And not everyone has the same giftedness, but we all have skills, and we all are called to fulfill the Great Commission. Just so you know, that's not just the job of the church or some of us. It's the job of all of us to live out our faith in the marketplace and the culture at large. Personally, I use my negotiating skills daily in one way or the other. All of us do. You do too. Sometimes in our moments of negotiations, they can be complex, but more often than not, they're just a series of this little 1-minute conversations with our kids, our boss, with our neighbor. Listen, I'm a negotiator. You're a negotiator too. If you're a parent, you negotiate with your kids. Some people say, "No, I don't negotiate with my kids." It is what it is. But at the end, at some points, you're going to negotiate with them, even if they're about a year old, right? You negotiate with your kids. spouse, your boss, your coworkers, employees, creditors, vendors, friends, clerks, even salespeople. And I negotiate with my words, so do you. We use our tone, our body language, and even our silence. So a lot of times is what we don't say versus what we do say. Negotiating is the way that you get what you want, whether it's a roof, a new car, or, listen, get your kid to put the toilet seat down. That's a big negotiating. Now I want to tip my hat to anyone who can get their kids to do that. It's the boys. Anyways, the Apostle Paul gives us the confidence we need to better negotiate from strength, which in turn will help reduce the tension we feel when we're sharing our faith with the lost world. When I speak about negotiating, it's not everybody comes out on some equal winner, by the way, but God begins to surface, bring things up to the surface to the non-believer. Sometimes it's called pre-evangelism. This leads us to the principle that the party with the most knowledge wins. Never forget that, and I would say the biggest heart as well, and the biggest level of obedience. Never forget that knowledge is really very powerful. It's power. The more you know, the better your chances of winning, the intellectual points. But we must be careful as well not to win just the argument and lose the heart. We need both heart and mind. Knowing that, you got to know yourself and you can gauge that and how you communicate better. And this is why it's a skill and something we have to learn, really helping people reveal Jesus Christ and the gospel message sometimes is better done a little bit at a time. And that could be done really for our advantage and for their advantage. All too often we want to share everything about everything and the whole gospel and overwhelm them with one shot. And sometimes that's good if they want to keep hearing. But a lot of times you want to make sure that they're able to ingest the simple basics of the gospel, right? Meaning keep your message simple. The gospel message is simple, but we often make it more complex than it needs to be. But there are times when we need to communicate more deeply and more complexly the truths of God. That's why we do apologetics, and there's a little theology and philosophy in there. That's important too. But we need to be careful that we do that little by little, which allows us to present the more important parts of the gospel message in a more deep and meaningful way. You need that foundation is my point. Got to build that first. But if the other person feels that you're desperate to make your points, you just lost control, by the way. Any chance that you have to convey verbally through body language or any other way that you're not desperate, you retain control. That in turn draws those you are sharing your faith with closer to the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's just a fact. Sometimes it's what we don't say, right? It's our actions speak louder than our words. But listen, in closing, anytime you can convey confidence through presenting the gospel to non-believers, you retain better control, no matter how anxious you may be on the inside. Never let it show. The simple act of calmly and slowly presenting the gospel message, not slamming them, is one of the most powerful tools that a negotiator, an evangelist has in his toolbox without saying a word. And sometimes, by remaining a little quiet, the other person create a little bit of fear there. That you know what the fear is? It's not fear of God. It's a fear that you may not continue to tell them the truth, and they want to know the truth. And a hungry heart is the best heart, ready to hear the truth about the good news of Jesus Christ. In the end, fulfilling the Great Commission according to Matthew 28 is a skill developed, led by the Spirit of God, using the Word of God. Hope today has helped you better fulfill the Great Commission, win more souls for Christ. That's the goal here. So I appreciate you tuning in. Listen, make sure you subscribe. Boom, Gonzalo Sinistro. Hit that alert bell down there. And I'm going to ask you two simple things. Listen, number one, please check out my new Stephen Garofalo at locals.com. That's my social media platform. That's where I'm doing most of my posting these days. Love to have you be part of that. It's free for like $5. I think it is. You get past the trolls and bots. You get some of the more exclusive stuff. And you do get the podcast actually commercial free twice a week. But in the end, I would say as well, stand with us, Reason for Truth. This is very important. It takes a lot of time and energy and resources to produce videos, but we also work with youth every week, and we're working with adults, and we're working with professionals, and a lot of that stuff we just don't put out there into the media. So you could do that, stand with us on a monthly gift, gift, or stand with us with one-time gift. Either way, it's tax deductible. Very encouraging, getting towards the end of the year. You could do that at reasonfortruth.bible or reasonfortruth.org. Either way, /donate, or just hit the donate button. we do appreciate your prayerful consideration as such. So God's blessings to you. Let's make sure we get out there, not see evangelism as a negotiating thing, but let's make sure that we understand that there's human dynamics at work here, and that there are certain things we could learn from human nature to help us better execute the Great Commission. Apostle Paul gave us a lot of cues with that. So God's blessings to you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. This is your Reason for Truth for today.